Hello, and welcome back to Bible with Bible Corner. Today we are going to start Joshua chapter 12. And before we start reading, I did read this chapter ahead of time to try to prepare myself for this next series of videos. And I'm not one to skip chapters, so I won't skip this one. But there's going to be very little narration or description on my end. At least from what I have read, we will see how these videos go. Anyway, so Joshua chapter 12, I'm going to start reading verses 1 through 6 with the English Standard Version. Now these are the kings of the land whom the people of Israel defeated and took possession of their land beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise, from the valley of the Arnon to Mount Hermon, with all the Arabah eastward. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, and ruled from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and from the middle of the valley as far as river Jabbok. The boundary of the Ammonites, that is half of Gilead, and Arabah to the Sea of Chinneroth, eastward, and in the direction of Beth-jeshimoth, to the Sea of Arabah, the Salt Sea, southward to the foot of the slopes of Pisgah. And Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and Edrei, and ruled over Mount Hermon and Salecah, and all Bashan, and the boundary of the Geshurites, and the Maacathites, and over half of Gilead, in the boundary of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the people of Israel defeated them, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land for possession to the Reubenites and to Gadites and half the tribe of Manasseh. New Century Version. The Israelites took control of the land east of the Jordan River from the Arnon ravine to Mount Hermon, and all the land along the eastern side of the Jordan Valley. These lands belonged to the kings whom the Israelites defeated. Sihon, king of the Amorites, lived in the city of Heshbon and ruled the land from Aroer at the Arnon ravine to the Jabbok River. His land started at the middle of the ravine, which was their border with the Ammonites. Sihon ruled over half the land of Gilead and over the eastern side of the Jordan Valley, from Lake Galilee to the Dead Sea, and he ruled from Beth-jeshimoth south to the slopes of Pisgah. Og, king of Bashan, was one of the last of the Rephites. He ruled the land in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon, Salecah, and all the area of Bashan up to where the people of Geshur and Maacah lived. Og also ruled half the land of Gilead up to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. The Lord's servant Moses and the Israelites defeated all these kings, and Moses gave the land to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and to East Manasseh as their own. Okay, so this chapter, I'm going to say, is kind of a rehash of everything that has happened in the previous 11 chapters. This is talking about before they crossed over the river into the land that God had promised them. There were a couple of tribes and then half of another, as it said in verse 6, that wanted to settle in that land. So it was given to them. So again, like I said, we're going to see a bit of a rehash throughout the rest of this chapter of what had happened, all the list of the kings that were defeated. And so with all of that, I've probably said this in videos prior in the book of Joshua, but we see here that it didn't just happen overnight. And quite honestly, what I will say is, with God, I would say don't expect anything to ever happen overnight. Because especially in today's world of instant gratification, we want stuff to happen now. But we can see here that it took several years for them to defeat all of the kings of the land that God had promised them. We could see that prior to this, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. And then let's look ahead to the prophets, how the prophets had said, hey, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen X amount of years from now. In other words, it didn't happen overnight. And a lot of the stuff they prophesied about was not good things, but it still happened. It happened exactly as they said, because it was exactly how God said it would happen. Now, God, that same God that we are reading about in the Old Testament, is the same God that we have today. Things are still happening today the way God wants them to happen. Okay, someone is going to take what I just said very literal and say something along the lines of, so what you're telling me is I'm eating this pizza because God said I was going to eat pizza at this exact moment. It's best not to get that literal. When I say things are happening exactly as God said they're going to happen, what I'm talking about is the spiritual side of things. We as humans, our physical selves, we have free will to do what we want. God wants us to follow him, and I pray that several people do follow him. But when, as I said, when what he wants done is being done, it's the spiritual side of things. This here that we read about in Joshua is physical battles. It is setting things up for Israel. We are going to see later on, if you read Kings and Solomon, that Israel will fall. They will want kings instead of glorifying or worshiping God. So, but God knows all of this stuff is going to happen. And that's why he sent Jesus, so that Jesus could be the sacrifice for us, so that we could have a personal relationship with God. We no longer, because of Jesus, need the sacrifices. We no longer, because of Jesus, need the prophets to come and tell us, hey, this is going to happen in 20 years. Jesus came, lived a perfect life, died on that cross. And when he died, the curtain in the temple was torn from top to bottom. Think about that for a second. And think about how thick the material was on that curtain. So now we have a personal relationship with God because of all of this. Israel would talk to God through Moses, through Joshua, and through several other people. We have a personal relationship. So, I hope you find encouragement in this, and I hope you have a wonderful, God-centered day. Bye.